So you've purchased the kit for pendants, and these kits are going to be super fun because it's kind of like when we used to go into the candy store and get a grab bag and you didn't know what was going to be in the bag, but it was always really a great surprise. So with the pendant kits, you're going to get any number of things. There are lots of things that you will always get. So you will always get stringers, you will always get beads, you will always get sheet glass, you will always get crushed glass in a variety of colors. These are examples of the beads. Whoop, one's rolling away. But some of the things that will crop up and are in any given kit will be some specialty items. It will come with a little note just to give you some extra pointers on how to work with that item, but it will give you a really interesting range because you're going to be making 6 pendants. You'll have lots of opportunity to play around with these new and exciting things. So watch the cutting video if you can, the intro to cutting video, so that you can get the shapes that you want. But if you're not comfortable cutting, don't worry, because any organic shape will also end up being a beautiful, beautiful piece. An example of that is this one, which is just a little piece of scrap glass. And what I did, it was a white piece of scrap glass. And what I did, I'm going to put some safety glasses on here because I'm about to start snapping glass. Safety glasses are also in your kit, of course. So you can just break the stringer in your fingers. I'm going to grab a little scrap glass just to show you on an actual piece. You'll get all kinds of little pieces. Now, maybe this is a little large, so maybe you want to take your mosaic nippers and just nip that down. Maybe I want this piece. So then I can just place my little stringers however I'd like on there. And that's it, voila. So you're gonna have 2 different jars of glue. One is tacky glue and one is a liquid hairspray. For this one, you can use either, but the liquid hairspray might be the easiest just by getting a little bit up in your dropper, dropping it down on those stringers so they don't roll around, and you're good to go. That's going to, all in the kiln, we're going to a high enough heat that everything is going to round out beautifully like this. You don't have to worry about any sharp edges. It will be like a well-worn stone. It's a beautiful effect, so don't worry about that. So that's one example. Another example is something like this one. As you can see, I'm going to show you how to attach these bales, so I haven't attached them on here. This one is a piece of base glass. So say you're going to have some clear glass in your bin. So say I want to have this piece. I'm going to use the Sharpie marker because I've decided I want it this long. Sharpie marker burns off in the kiln, so you don't have to worry about scrubbing it off. You can use it to mark. I'm just going to use the mosaic nippers to take that off. How easy is that? And then for this one, I just cut little tiny strips of colored glass. So say I want to do this one. So I can use my cutter here, and I'm just going to do, they don't have to be exact. Because I don't want to hold you up, I'm going to cut a couple at once, but you can do them one at a time. I'm going to use my rosier pliers, flat side up, as we show in the video. There. There. Whoops, that one broke. No biggie. I can either stick that back together on here, or I can leave it. And maybe I'll just cut that little extra edge off like that. And there's one stripe. These guys are a little long, so I'm just gonna use my nippers. I'm showing you the easiest way to to do this so that if you don't have a ton of experience with cutting, you won't feel scared to give it a try. So there I've started my, and they don't even have to match. You can have them shorter, a little bit longer. Longer will give you sort of a ripply edge. And then I would start in on another color, and I could put that color in between. It's all going to blend in and smooth out beautifully. So you can have gaps, don't worry about that. They don't have to be perfect because it's all gonna round out beautifully. I say that a lot in classes. So no worry, it's gonna be great. So that is one option for this guy. This guy is another one that I did with some stringers, but it has two different colors on it. So it's got white glass and red glass over top. So all I did was take the one piece of glass and overlaid another piece of glass. So an example, here's an example. I'm going to use my ruler. I've got this great cutting board too. So on the cutting board, I can see where, with the grid, where the measurements are, and it's super handy. So you will have this cutting board as well. So I'm going to use the ruler. Again, everything rounds out. So if your cut isn't perfectly straight, don't worry about it. It's going to look great. There we go. So I've got my rectangle, and then if I wanted to put another piece of glass over top of that, doesn't even have to be the same size. I could have a different width over top. I can have it hang down more than that. I like to cheat as much as possible with the measurements, so I'll just do that. And I think I'm just going to freehand it. I could use the ruler again, but I'm just going to follow that line. There we go. And so I can put that on top. Now I've got two layers. This means if it's two layers, the sides are going to stay straight. If you've only got one layer, the sides will suck in a little bit, and so it'll be a little curvier, kind of like this one's a little bit curvier on the sides. Either way is fine. This just gives you another option. So then you can decorate on top. You could decorate with, say, confetti. Sorry, not confetti. This is frit. It looks like confetti because this particular frit's all different colors. It's really pretty. It looks kind of like flowers when it's done. It's very pretty. Everything is going to sink down into the glass. So as much as you layer up, it's going to sink down. So you don't have to worry. Just make sure everything is glued together really well with your glues. What else? If you were to do something with the beads, you could create a design with the beads. That will all melt together beautifully and have a very nice organic shape. You can piece together different, in a mosaic pattern on the top. You can leave gaps. Don't worry about it. Again, when it's melted, when it liquefies, it's going to be lovely. So there are any number of ways you can do that. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the specialty glass. So you may get some dichroic. These pieces, now I'm not sure if we can pick this up on the camera, but these pieces are dichroic with patterns in it. Dichroic glass is a thin film of optical metal that's coated on top of, in this case, a clear piece of glass, in this case, some red transparent glass. It has incredible shimmer. It's kind of like, price-wise, the diamond of glass. It's usually used sparingly, but when it's used, it's just beautiful. So you can use your mosaic nippers. If you get a piece like this, you could use your mosaic nippers to clip the pieces that you want, or you could use the whole piece as it is on top of a piece of glass. You can, as you can see, you can change the color. Ooh, that looks cool. You can, because it's on transparent, the color will adapt. That's That's really neat. It's very effective also on a dark. Hopefully my turning it around will pick up on the camera. This is also rainbow effect. Very cool. So if you get some of that, no worries if you cut it up. No worries if you don't cut it up. If you get these little guys, just place them down. You'll have some tweezers in your kit as well, so you can place them with tweezers. And you'll just set them down like this on the glass. You can mix them in with some beads if you want. Whatever your heart desires, mix them in with some of the frit. If you put transparent frit over top, that would give an interesting effect as well, with one of the colors that is transparent as opposed to opaque. All kinds of options. See this sort of thing? You can put pieces like that on top of it. That'll create a different color effect, but the metallic shimmer will still show through as long as that glass on top is transparent. So that's a funky thing. Another funky thing is if you get some millies in your kit. So these little guys, I won't take up too much time explaining the process. It's a very, very cool process for how these are made. It's basically a big piece of glass that's stretched out and makes the image inside very, very tiny. Then this rod is chopped up and we have these little tiny images in the glass. So this is probably impossible to see from this distance, but there's a little owl, there's a little swallow, this is a green heart, we have flowers. That's how this one was done. This one has 3 little flowers in yellow and red on the glass. And how that was made, the glass was cut, as you can see, it was cut a little bit smaller than this one. So I'm just gonna give you a quick idea. A little bit smaller. You can do it bigger, but this is just how that one was made. And then there was a little piece of clear put on top. Now that little piece of clear didn't go right to the edge, doesn't have to. It's okay if it does. It's even okay if it goes over the edge. You'll just have a clear ring around it. So the glass was stacked like that. And then I put the little, in this case, it was little flowers on top of that. And what that does is allow the piece to sink down and gives it enough room to expand out. So it ends up being a nice little rounded shape with these lovely smooth surface. And this piece will kind of bloom a bit. These ones were much smaller in size than this one. So this will get a little bit bigger as it expands, and you'll more easily be able to see the little owl on it. So those are super fun. Again, those are sort of a higher end glass accessory purchase, and so kind of a fun thing to have in your kit if that's one of the things you get in your kit. Another item that you might get in your kit is bubble powder. So this is a blue bubble powder, and it's on a blue glass. So let me see. I think I'm going to show you on a different color glass so that you can see it. So here's, you will in your kit get some little squares. So as I say, if you don't like cutting, you can just use what's there. So if you get some bubble powder, it'll come in a little tiny pot like this, and it'll be labeled bubble powder, so you'll know what the heck you've got. There'll also be a little note with it, so to help you through. You're gonna take the lid off and grab your little, here's a toothpick, and just take a little bit of this. You'll be given more powder than you need. You're given more powder than you need in case some of it spills. So don't feel you need to use all the powder in there unless you're going to use it on other pendants, because this amount, hopefully you're going to be able to see that. It looks very small, but it creates that many bubbles, a lot of bubbles. And the other weird thing, this is going to turn blue. This color is blue bubbles, but it has sort of a plummy look until it's fired. So whatever glass you put down as your underneath glass, those blue bubbles, so in this case, the blue bubbles will be on this pink glass. the next part of this is you're going to want to have a piece of glass to fit over that. And that glass, I can tell from here, I think, I might be totally wrong. Oh, all right, it's going to be 4 squares on here. And as you can see, I'm not cutting a perfectly straight line, so that's no big deal, because when it's fired, it's all gonna look beautiful and rounded out. So that's my hairspray. I need the tacky glue. So what you're gonna do is put the tacky glue all over that top piece, because you want to squish them together so they stick. Same with all of these guys. You're going to want the tacky glue or the hairspray, because you don't want to be able to have them running around in the kit while on your way. So there we go. I've stuck that down, and that will now be stuck and easy to transport. When it's fired, this powder will bubble up and create those blue bubbles. It's very cool. A little chemistry experiment. So now, lastly, you might get a decal in your kit. And if you get a decal, there are all kinds of different pictures. We have, this one is in a lovely little nest. We have some that are birds. We have maple leaves. We have graphic shapes, Christmas type items at Christmas time. It's endless. So I'm going to show you really quickly how to put this down. And I think, you know, in my excitement over everything, I managed to cut up the piece that I had set aside for putting that on. So let me just get you a piece here. I'm just going to quickly, so I want to make sure that this fits entirely. So 2 inches about there. And I'm doing it freehand, so it will not be straight, but that's okay. I'm going to do it on this big scrap piece. We'll have an organic shape. You can double it up if you want. I probably would for these particular ones, just because that will keep a nice straight shape. But not to worry, if you want to just do it on one, it'll just, this piece will just sort of become a little more wavy. So say I'm putting it on these two. I'm just going to keep this underneath so that you can see it better. You're going to get yourself a little bowl from the kitchen and some warm water. This is not warm anymore, but I think it'll still work. There's a little paper film possibly on the surface. Just remove that. So you can see it looks kind of like a sticker. It's got a paper back and a glossy finish. You're going to put it into the water. I'm just going to dunk it. And let it soak for a bit. Now, if the water's warm, it's going to be a lot faster. It'll come apart very quickly. If the water's cooler, it'll take longer to come apart. It will still come apart. You don't want to put it in the water and walk away. If you do, the decal will float away from the paper and might flip over. And if that happens, it's going to be, it's not going to adhere nicely to your glass. So you want to make sure that you catch it before it's it's floated away from the paper. So I'm going to show you what I'm doing here. I just checked it in the water, and I can see it's moving off of the paper. So that's a good thing. And this way I know which side is the right side. And I'm just going to take it down to the glass. And I'm going to slide the paper out. So now, oh, and it's very close to invisible. You can, I just use my fingers because they're so small. You want to make sure that it's completely free of any bubbles or any bubbles or water in between the decal and the glass. So it's a good idea to get a little Kleenex or a little paper towel or cloth. And I'm just going to use a cloth. And just make sure you hold on to it because you don't want it to move around. Once it's stuck down to the glass, you don't want to have it move again, because then you're going to create an air pocket in there, and wherever there's an air pocket, it won't adhere to the glass and you'll be missing that section of the design. So if you flick it up again as well, it's very difficult to get it back down. You could put a little bit of water and try and create another seal, but best to make sure that you're putting it where you want it, drying it off, and then it's good to go. So if this were the case for my piece, I would make sure that I don't put any glue or any hairspray on the surface of your decal. Leave it alone. But if you're putting two pieces together, just put a little bit of glue or hairspray in between the two pieces and let it dry so that it doesn't shuffle around in the kiln. So lastly, I'm going to show you how we're going to attach the bail. I made a mess. This is great. Okay. So I'm going to show you how to attach the bail. What's going to happen is you're going to get all of your pieces back like this, and you're going to get some bails back. So now is your turn to put the bail onto the pendant, and this way you can choose, do you want your pendant to go that way or that way or that way? You can make up your mind and then glue accordingly. You're going to get a special glue with your pieces this time. It's E6000, and there's a kind of a trick to, apparently there's a trick to opening it too. There we go. So the method to gluing the bails on is really important to making sure that the glass is going to stick to the bail. The bail is this loopy thing. Some people ask me, what the heck am I talking about when I say bail? That's what it is. So when you're working with the bail, this has not got very much of a grip to it, and the glass is pretty smooth. Now you could take an emery file and like a nail file and rough up the surface of both, and that does help. But I find this technique for how to glue it together is the best way, and I haven't had any issues with them coming apart. So what you're going to do, in your case, you will have a pot of E6000, and you're going to have a toothpick. So I'll show you on the toothpick, because you're just going to go into the pot, and apparently I should have grabbed one of the pots. There we go. So go into the pot, grab a little bead of the glue, and place it onto your bail. Next thing you're going to do is grab your glass and place it however you'd like. Maybe I'd like it like that, on top of the bail. And the trick is, now this is going to keep going, the trick is you don't want to squish it down. You just want to have it resting down there. If you squish it, all of the glue is going to come out from between the bail and the glass, and you won't actually have anything between the glass and the bail to stick. When you're drying, one way, if your surface of your glass is pretty smooth, I like to dry it upside down, and that way I can make sure that the bail is still very straight and centered. It takes it takes a couple hours before it's tacky enough that it's stuck, but it takes about 24 hours, depending on humidity and stuff, for it to cure. So make sure you just leave it off to the side while it's drying and wait a bit before you show off your beautiful piece. But that's how you glue it. E6000's the best one I have found, because it's a bit rubbery. It doesn't crack apart when the glue dries. It'll stay nicely secured to your piece. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm happy to help. And I look forward to seeing your beautiful pieces. There's such an interesting collection in each of these kits. It'll be fun.